Our fans are quite the same all around the world, in my best Dublin accent.
Niall Horan first rose to fame in 2010 when he auditioned as a solo artist on the British X Factor. His X Factor journey led him on a path that would see him become a member of the boy band One Direction. He quickly established himself as a fan favorite as One Direction started to become a global phenomenon.
He's really been very successful in America, actually, because they love the fact that he's Irish. And when they got to the US, everyone was just talking about Niall. And he's very sweet, he's very fun-loving.
And I think that Niall always kind of knew that this is what he was destined to do. Niall has a lot of confidence. He's got that kind of Irish, great humor. And I think initially when the band was put together, it was hard for Niall perhaps not to be the lead singer. I think he always saw himself as a solo artist and he had to kind of take a step back.
As One Direction started to become global superstars, it was Harry Styles who was expected to become the band's leading man. But as their popularity grew, it was apparent that the boy from Ireland was by far the most popular member, especially in the USA.
Niall is the real surprise of the bunch because we don't really know that much about him in the UK and we haven't really paid that much attention to him. But America has just gone crazy for him. So I think we're all going to have to give it a bit more of a go. Try and find out who this guy is. He actually said that he was, the Irish version of Justin Bieber. He wants to be bigger than the likes of Justin and Beyonce.
I've seen them live for several times. I saw them live at Madison Square Garden in New York, and the amount of banners that fans had with them for Niall, photos of Niall, presents for Niall. He really is loved by his American fans, and I know deep down, I think he secretly loves that.
As One Direction established their name as the biggest boy band of all time, we invite you to follow the story of their leading man, Niall Horan.
When I first met One Direction, my first thought was, gosh, these boys are really young, because when you're behind the scenes on a show like The X Factor, the pressure is really on. And I actually felt for them in a way because you've got the entire country watching. But what really struck me was how much they lent on each other. And compared to the solo artists of their age, it actually felt like because there were 5 of them, they just rode the experience. And it was crazy. I mean, they were the craziest scenes at the X Factor I can remember. So I remember a couple of weeks before the final, I'd gone down to the X Factor studio to interview Simon Cowell, who was getting very, very excited about these young guys and starting to develop his plans for them. And I was sitting in the canteen where all the contestants sit, and One Direction had come in to have their dinner. And the fans who were outside had realised that One Direction were in this canteen area and had climbed up the trees and started to climb on the roof of the canteen. And this was at the point when they were still only contestants on a reality TV show. So there was always something different about One Direction. It was almost as if they became a pop band on the show, and even though they didn't win the show, they came third, they managed to overshadow all of the other contestants that year.
Since their X Factor journey, One Direction have grown to international superstardom and are now one of the biggest boy bands of all time. One contributing factor to their astronomical success is the band's merchandising operation that sells millions of products each year and brings in millions of dollars for the band.
One Direction had definitely been marketed very cleverly, making a huge amount of money, which is going to set them up for life. They've now set up a company offshore from the UK. I believe that's to give them certain tax benefits so they can obviously save more of their money as well. There's books, there's toys, there's videos. So these guys aren't going to be short of money. I think the balance though, when you're in a band like this, is you always have to think about what is the priority, and their priority has to be releasing great music, because without continued good music, all of these other things might make a lot of money, but they won't continue their career.
Simon Cowell and his team have undoubtedly learned every trick in the trade, and no sign is clearer of that than the One Direction books and merchandise that is surrounding them. That is how you make your money as a pop star. So One Direction have already had about 3 books out. They had One Direction Forever Young, which was their first official book on the back of X Factor. That came out straight after X Factor. And it was worth noting that I don't really think there was a successful book for Matt Cardle, who was the winner of X Factor, or the runner-up, Rebecca Ferguson. It was One Direction. Simon Cowell got the book out within the space of about 3 days. That went to number 1 in the Sunday Times bestseller list, which is quite incredible. They've since had 2 other books out, so they've had their official album, and then they've had One Direction Dare to Dream, which is a collection of unseen photos and a private look into the world of One Direction. The hardback of that has already gone to the top of Sunday Times bestseller list, and it just shows that you just have to kind of drip feed little new tidbits of information, new merchandise. You only need a new cover and a few new pictures, and you can sell it for $12.99 and make a load of money.
You know, I think in this modern age, they would definitely have missed a trick if they hadn't started looking for merchandising deals, you know, from the very beginning, which they clearly did. You know, you have a book, a One Direction footage of backstage and pictures. You have Nokia phones that they launched where they have all kinds of, you know, wallpaper pictures of the boys, you know, as they're getting ready to go on stage. Special things for fans, special messages.
For me, when you were younger, when my first phone was a Nokia. Yeah. So Nokia, they've got the history. You know, Nokia have always been a safe, good option for a phone. And you never hear about Nokia's breaking, ever.
No. Never lose signal.
Just saying.
And of course, you've got the calendar, which was like the #1 best-selling calendar of the boys, you know, posing. And then, you know, where would you be without the dolls, which are coming out next, you know, the action figurines, whatever. It's extraordinary. But, you know, the merchandising is where these boys will be making most of their money. Bear in mind, when you're a young artist, a new group, even if you sign for £2 million, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get a huge percentage of that. There's all kinds of people to pay off, and if you haven't written your own songs, it doesn't matter how high they go in the charts, there's no extra money for you. Artists generally tend to get better deals their second and third record deal. The first one, they tend not to come out so well. With all this merchandising, however, the boys presumably would be getting a share of some of that because of their image, and that certainly will help. There were also a lot of rumors in the press that after the boys did so well in the US, Simon gave each of them £2 million as a bonus. So it was a £10 million gift to the group. And I think there is, while that figure may be exaggerated, it certainly seems very likely that Simon Cowell would have rewarded them in some way. He's no fool, and he wants to keep them signed to his label undoubtedly for a very long time.
Niall Horan has embarked on a roller coaster ride, from obscurity to fame and fortune. He's become the vocal point of one of the biggest boy bands of all time. So where did it all begin for Niall Horan?
Cheeseburgers and jelly babies.
Oh god.
Oh no! If you broadcast that.
What is the significance of that?
I know, when I find something awkward, I just say it.
So if it's really awkward,
it's a little bit like this.
Can we just have a nice clean soundbite of you giving us that phrase?
Nah, it's alright. No, I'm too embarrassed.
But on another note,
Niall James Horan was born on September 13, 1993, in the county of Westmeath, Ireland. Born to Bobby and Maura Horan, he has an older brother named Greg. Unfortunately for Niall, his parents got divorced when he was just 5 years of age. He and his brother lived between each of their homes for a few years before eventually deciding to live with their father.
Niall Horan is the only Irish member of One Direction, and he has always been obsessed with music, and he's probably one of the most musically talented in the band. So he plays guitar, and he talks about how his dad noticed that he was a good singer when he heard him in the back of the car when they were driving along, and his aunt actually said she thought it was the radio, so she didn't realise that it was actually him singing. And he compares it to Michael Bublé, because I think that's how Michael Bublé's dad discovered that he could sing.
He started playing guitar when he was really young. He always wanted to be a singer. He was very much inspired by people like the Beatles. And I think that Niall always kind of knew that this is what he was destined to do. Niall has a lot of confidence. He's got that kind of Irish, great humor.
Niall was a pupil at Mary's College, a boys' Christian brothers school. Clearly having a desire to sing from an early age, Niall was part of the school's choir, performing seasonally around Christmas time.
And he's very sweet, he's very fun-loving. His dad has talked about the fact that he's never really had one proper girlfriend, but there was a girl in Ireland, in his hometown, that he was very fond of and still is to this day. So whenever he goes back, he kind of gets to see her and just hang out with his kind of mates. And really, Niall is someone who completely remembers his roots and loves going back to Ireland and what it reminds him of.
Prior to performing on the X Factor at age 16, Niall would travel around his homeland, performing small gigs wherever he could. He started playing the guitar from a very young age. And, as a teenager, he started performing at the Mullingar Arts Centre, helping raise money for the local football team, the Shamrocks. In 2010, when Niall was just 16 years of age, he auditioned for the television talent competition, the X Factor. He moved up through several rounds of preliminary auditions, culminating in a performance for the program's judges, including Simon Cowell, Cheryl Cole, Louis Walsh, and Katy Perry in Dublin. He sang a version of Neo's So Sick. His performance was met with some criticism from the judges, but ultimately, he was accepted into the final competition. Unfortunately for Niall, he was eliminated as a solo contestant after the semi-finals at the judges' house stage. However, this wasn't to be the end of his time on the X Factor. The judges made a decision to combine Niall with fellow solo contestants Harry Styles, Liam Payne, Zayn Malik, and Louis Tomlinson to form the boy band One Direction. The group got together for 2 weeks to get to know each other and to practice. For the qualifying song at the judges' house stage, One Direction sang an acoustic version of the Edna Swap song Torn. Cowell later commented that their performance convinced him that they were confident and fun, like a gang of friends.
I saw there was definitely a chemistry between the five boys, even though they were put together by Simon and me and everybody else in the show. But there was a genuine chemistry. They became friends. The five boys, it just worked. There was a chemistry between the five of them from day one.
Within the first 4 weeks of the live shows, One Direction were Simon's last act in the competition. The group quickly gained popularity in the UK.
I don't think we've ever had as many girls outside for any act ever as One Direction. They were always outside, 200 or 300 girls. You had a guaranteed fan base every week there, and they knew everybody's name in the group. They knew Louis, they knew Zayn, they knew Niall, they knew everybody. And all five members had their little own kind of fan club. All five members had their own fan club outside. So we knew there was something. And inside, every time they sang, there was hysteria in the audience. It was like, take that or Westlife.
I think all the way through the X Factor, you saw One Direction just grow and grow. In terms of their confidence on stage, their popularity, the screams in the studio when they came on stage were just kind of deafening, much bigger than the screams for anybody else. And even when you're watching it at home, because obviously X Factor is a real appointment to view, so people gather around their telly, they'd have X Factor nights, and everyone was talking about One Direction, whatever age they were. So you'd have really young girls, they'd all have a One Direction member that they really liked, and then you'd have people in their kind of 40s grands loving One Direction. A lot of older women were obsessed with different members of One Direction, and the great thing about it was there was something for everyone.
Who could have imagined that these boys were actually rejected from the X Factor when they all auditioned as individual acts? It's just phenomenal to think that this powerhouse group that is taking the world by storm were actually not good enough as individuals to even make the show, let alone win the show. They weren't even good enough to get a spot on the show. I think what all of these boys represent individually is in and of itself just maybe good. But when you put them all together, the combination is, well, spectacular.
I'll always remember on X Factor when the boys auditioned individually, because as they came on, I used to say, God, he'd be great in a boy band. It was like a joke with Simon. Simon used to say to me, oh, everybody be in a boy band. If you had your way, everybody would be in a boy band. When I saw Zayn and I saw Liam and I saw Louis, I was thinking, boy band, boy band, boy band, all along.
Simon definitely had a twinkle in his eye when the idea of forming these 5 very good looking, very individual and clean cut looking boys into a band. He must have known he had a cash cow there, because it was just ripe for the taking. You've got people like Justin Bieber. They were like 5 much better Justin Biebers. And groups on the X Factor have never been successful before, but you just could tell that they had this star quality from the moment they got together and they started performing on stage. They really gelled immediately. They really looked like they were enjoying themselves so much, and they just kind of looked perfect, and Simon knew it.
Every year on X Factor, I always try and do a boy band. Always, always, always. And I'm always in my mind thinking, oh, he'd be good in a boy band, or she'd be good in a girl band, or something like that. But I always wanted to do a boy band on X Factor. But the reason One Direction are successful and the reason One Direction are the biggest boy band around the moment is all down to, I hate to say this, but it's all down to Simon Cowell. Simon made the whole thing happen, nobody else. I remember on the live shows there was total hysteria in the studio every time One Direction were on stage. Even though they didn't win the show, there was mass hysteria inside. But also, what people don't know was that outside, there was always 200 or 300 girls looking for One Direction. So then we knew we were onto something great. Even though they didn't win the show, One Direction were the real winners.
I met the boys all the way right at the beginning, so I'd be down at X Factor, hanging out with the judges, meeting all of the contestants, and you get introduced to them, you'd hang out with them, and One Direction backstage were an absolute nightmare. Anyone behind the scenes on X Factor was just like, oh my God, we've lost Harry, we've lost Louis, where have they gone? That one's hiding in a cupboard, that one's trying on new clothes. They were the life and soul of X Factor that year. So it was a really exciting time to be with a band that you knew were going to go places.
Simon had the perfect launch pad for a new band with X Factor. So he had the 5 boys, he had X Factor, he had the UK, everybody was biting on them. And then all around Europe, thanks to YouTube, everybody wanted to know about One Direction because they do look great. They're new, they're fresh, they're exciting. They have it all.
Throughout the early stages of their X Factor journey, Niall's confidence was there for all to see.
He was quite confident when he was on X Factor because he went on there saying, I want to be as big as Beyonce and Justin Bieber. I don't think he quite realised that he was going to be even bigger than Justin Bieber at the time. He's really been very successful in America actually because they love the fact that he's Irish. Whereas in the UK, he seemed a bit more of the kind of the cute, funny one, not the one that people fancied quite so much. But I think he's really blossomed, and I think now he's overtaking some of the others. In fact, there was a bit of a joke between him and Harry because Harry was seen as the heartthrob in the UK, and when they got to the US, everyone was just talking about Niall.
And I think initially when the band was put together, it was hard for Niall perhaps not to be the lead singer. I think he always saw himself as a solo artist, and he had to kind of take a step back, especially as his fellow bandmate Harry Styles was getting all the female attention, most of the attention. And I think for Niall, the American kind of crazy mania over him has probably been really gratifying because they've turned him into the star that he always believed that he had the potential to be.
One Direction finished the competition in 3rd place. And immediately after the final, their song Forever Young, which would have been released if they had won the X Factor, was leaked onto the internet. Shortly afterwards, it was confirmed that One Direction had been signed by Cowell to a reported £2 million Psycho Records record contract. Recording for their debut album began in January 2011 as they flew to Los Angeles to begin work. Released in September 2011, One Direction's debut single, What Makes You Beautiful, reached #1 on the UK singles chart after becoming the most pre-ordered Sony Music Entertainment single in history. What Makes You Beautiful was released in the United States in February 2012, where it debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 28, becoming the highest debut for a British act since 1998.
What Makes You Beautiful, the first single for One Direction, that was the most crucial release of their career because their entire career hinged on whether this song was going to be a hit or not. And it was just an instant, huge pop classic. It really was. Incredibly clever that they'd sampled one of the songs from Greece because it meant that instantly people were pulled in and connected to the song. But, you know, find me someone who says that that What Makes You Beautiful is not a catchy song.
When I heard What Makes You Beautiful, I thought, wow. It didn't sound like the usual boy band song. It was a great radio-friendly song. It was up-tempo. And it was a hit all around the world. Thanks to YouTube, the video, the boys are so fresh and good looking. Everybody loves them. And it was a great song.
Well, one of the things I love about the song is that it's so catchy. It's bubblegum pop. You know, it's a really positive song with a message about how beautiful this girl is who isn't aware of her own prettiness. I mean, it's about as affirming and up as you can get. And also in the video, you know, they just kind of had the words over and over again. And it was also very clever because nobody recognized these boys' faces at that time. You know, they weren't well-known faces. So they really made the video all about the song at that time. And I thought that was very clever as well. Again, the message, you have these very handsome, very charming young boys singing about how beautiful this girl is. It has a very strong, not very subtle, psychological message, which is, I want you. Do you want me? I want you. You're amazing. And I think that was very much a part of their initial image in getting young girls to like them. They seemed very accessible. They seemed like you could date one of them. You know, they didn't seem to be arrogant or haughty in any way. And I think that was a big part of their initial success.
It was a huge summer hit in the UK. It broke all pre-order records. And in America, it very, very quickly skyrocketed up the Billboard Hot 100 and actually got to #4 on the charts there. Again, that's a huge achievement. Most British boy bands just do not succeed on the Billboard singles charts. I think the last boy band that really did was Take That in the 1990s. Whereas #4, that's the sort of position that, you know, a big American boy band like NSYNC would have been really happy to get.
If you look back at One Direction's debut video, the video for What Makes You Beautiful, I mean, they look so different to the band we now see today playing arenas around the world. They were fresh-faced, they were so young, kooky little haircuts, linen look, very pastel, looked like something you might get in a Gap commercial. They were frolicking on the beach, they were enjoying being out in the outdoors, they were doing some traveling down a road in a Jeep, they were exploring the mountains, and they were having basically pop fun with the pastels. But it was the perfect video. It was massive on social media, fans loved it, and of course it helped the single, more importantly, hit #1.
Upon arrival in the USA in February 2012, One Direction embarked on a radio tour of North America. They made their first US television appearance on The Today Show at the Rockefeller Center, and an estimated 15,000 fans descended on the plaza. Critically commended for its appeal to the teenage audience, One Direction's first studio album, Up All Night, was released globally in early 2012. The album bowed atop the US Billboard 200 chart, making One Direction the first British group in the US chart history to enter at #1 with their debut album. They were inducted into the Guinness World Records as a result. Up All Night also became the first album by a boy band to sell 500,000 digital copies in the US, and by August 2012 had sold over 3 million copies worldwide.
When Simon, put together with the group their first album, Up All Night, he really did call in some favors. He didn't just kind of throw the boys out there. He very cleverly enlisted the help of some very big names like Kelly Clarkson and Ed Sheeran to perform with the boys. And I think that was very savvy, again, because it gave kind of them an instant credibility and an instant name recognition in terms of fans of, Kelly Clarkson. Obviously, these boys were good enough to sing with her. Bear in mind, Kelly Clarkson owes Simon Cowell a few favors because she was the winner of American Idol several years ago. So Simon clearly wasn't afraid to call in some favors in making this album, and it definitely paid off.
As soon as the boys had secured their record deal, very soon after the X Factor, the biggest battle actually behind the scenes was getting them the right songs for the album, because it was crucial that their first album, Up All Night, was a very, very big success. And actually, compared to most boy band albums, what really struck me about the album is that most of the songs on the album could be released as singles. So what you get with boy bands usually is you have 5 songs which are going to be released as singles from the album, and the rest are just absolute fillers and throwaway tracks. Whereas with the One Direction album, actually there's an argument that you could release any of those songs and they would go up the charts.
One Direction's debut album, Up All Night, is just the sort of album you would imagine they would make, and perfect for them. It's so catchy, really upbeat, your perfect kind of pop album. It might be surprising to some people to hear that, they're still quite a fledgling band really, but they had already been working with some really big names, some really top producers as well, who, if you think about how long it takes to make an album, the album only came out in November 2011 in the UK, and it takes, several months. So right from the beginning, the moment they were signed, Simon Cowell didn't waste any opportunity. He knew he was going to have to get some really big names and make this album a complete success because he had such faith in them.
There were also some really famous collaborators too. So there was some star power, which I think you see in the songs. Basically, they're good songs. They're good, solid pop songs. And actually, if you look at Justin Bieber, for example, he hasn't had that many good songs. So having good songs really does help.
One contributing factor to the astronomical success experienced by Niall Horan and One Direction is the popularity and success they achieved in the USA.
I think with Simon, he never actually understood or expected what happened with One Direction. When they did hit it in the US, I was speaking to a number of people and they were like, geez, this is actually happening. This is huge. It was up there with borderline on what the Beatles had when they did go to America. And I think it did take everybody by complete shock factor. And Simon himself would have freely admit that he did not expect what happened to happen in America.
One Direction would not be where they were today if it had not been for the American market. It's not to say that the Brits didn't love One Direction, that they weren't popular over here, but they might have very easily, in fact, I think, gone the way of other X Factor sensations here in the UK. I think what has launched them into international superstardom is the fact that the rest of the world, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, has reacted as if they were the Beatles, coming over, kind of taking the rest of the English-speaking world. And that has launched them into the superstar stratosphere. I think there's something about the fact that English people, I should say British people, know that this boy band group was created on a reality show, that all these boys come from very humble, normal backgrounds, is something about the familiarity of that maybe holds them back from being hailed as the next Elvis. Whereas to the rest of the world, who didn't know anything about where they came from and how they were kind of put together. They really are like the Beatles, and sort of the mystery around them is actually helping them, I think, in the other countries.
I don't think anybody who's working on the band themselves actually expected it to be what it is. You know, they can't leave a hotel without being mobbed. I was in New York recently, and One Direction were in a hotel, and there were 70 girls camped out overnight. So if you put it on that level, you just think, okay, A, why are their parents letting them do this? But B, what are these boys going to be able to do in life? And then America has reacted completely differently to what we have. Over here, we're all about Harry Styles. In America, the Irish boy Niall has got the lucky charm, and everybody fancies him. So it's a different reaction. But anywhere they go, it's exactly the same. They're mobbed.
Since their unique journey on The X Factor, Niall Horan and One Direction had been on a roller coaster ride of success and fame. After the monumental success of their first album, the boys were about to achieve further success at the 2012 Brit Awards.
Yes. First of all, we would like to thank every single person that voted for us. The fans around the world have been absolutely incredible to us since we told them that we got nominated for a Brit. And it's an absolute pleasure to collect it. And it's just thank you very much.
So the Brit Awards was actually the biggest night in One Direction's career since the X Factor. I was just a couple of tables away from them on the night. And when it was announced that they had won Best British Single, they were happier than I'd ever seen them. It was a huge, huge celebration for the band. There was a lot of wine, a lot of beer on the table. They really were out to party that night, and I don't blame them. I mean, remember, they were competing in that category versus Adele's Someone Like You, which most people had considered to be far and away the song of the year. But the thing that most people didn't remember is that this song was voted for by people who listened to the radio, and What Makes You Beautiful was actually a more mainstream pop song than Adele. So she won the album of the year, but they won single of the year.
Guys, I'm hosting this press conference. Hello. Well done for that, by the way. Well done.
Thank you, thanks.
Now, who's going to get the award at home?
We're going to break it into 5. We decided earlier on, we're going to break the award into 5 and smash it.
Either that or photocopy it, I think.
So who gets the head?
I want the head.
Well, I guess you've got the head.
Harry's going head.
You've just announced, hey, guys, you've announced you're about to go on tour again.
Yes, our tickets go on sale on Saturday for our UK and Ireland arena tour. We've just come off a tour, so it's absolutely very exciting to announce that we're going back on tour. So it's going to be fun. And we're going back on tour in February and March, and the tickets come on sale on Saturday.
What part of your life is still normal?
Us.
Not this part, definitely not this part.
Sleeping.
Yeah.
So the fact that anyone beside Adele won anything that night was a surprise. The fact that One Direction won Best Single over Adele really goes to show kind of the power of their fan base at this point. While most people in the world would probably agree that Adele has perhaps a superior vocal quality, or maybe she's won more Grammys, you cannot deny the popular appeal of this band. And the fact that so many people enjoyed their music of all ages absolutely came through that night at the Brit Awards. And I think the band was as surprised as anybody else in the audience that they won, but that doesn't make it any less deserved.
I think, for, we're 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, people like us don't get to do stuff like what we're doing very often, and we just feel so grateful to, all the fans who've put us where we are, all the radio, music channels who've helped us along the way, and we're just so grateful to have this massive opportunity, and we're having fun and working hard, and hopefully it keeps going.
And if you could snog any artist in the room tonight at the Brits,
Adele.
who would it be?
Niall Horan.
Who?
Adele.
Me.
Adele.
Said me.
Definitely Adele.
Rihanna.
I might try it on the way back.
Rihanna's looking hot in that dress tonight.
Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much. If you could hold your Brit up again for everybody. And
Oh, yeah. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And the thing about One Direction is they have this army of fans who vote for them. All they want to do is see One Direction. It's like One Direction are their new band, the same way as we love Take That or Wham or the Monkees or the Beatles. all this new generation of girls, all they want is One Direction. When they were up for Best British Single, their fans just voted and voted and voted. Nobody else had a chance. It was never going to be Adele. It was always going to be One Direction. And they won.
Towards the end of 2012, One Direction's record sales exceeded 8 million singles and 3 million albums. During a time when the UK was buzzing with excitement in anticipation of the 2012 Olympic Games in London, it was announced that One Direction would be performing their hit single, What Makes You Beautiful, at the closing ceremony of the Games.
For One Direction to play at the Olympics closing ceremony in London was absolutely massive, because suddenly they were playing to the world. That's no understatement.
And for One Direction to be invited cemented their pop authority and cemented the fact that they had become pop royalty in the world. I mean, not everyone got the chance to perform at that show, and they played a very integral part when they performed What Makes You Beautiful on the back of a moving truck. Who else got to do that? It helped as well in the handover to the Brazil Games in 2016. So they had a vital role to play.
And to be chosen to do this, you had to, really have proven yourself. They're used to thousands, tens of thousands of girls screaming at them in arenas all over the world, but it's all quite concentrated. Here they were playing to a global audience, and they must have known at that point that, they'd arrived.
And I know from speaking to them after they played at that Olympic Stadium, after they played that huge concert, that it meant so much to them. They admitted to me that they were incredibly nervous beforehand, but wow, they nailed their performance, and a lot of people were talking about it afterwards.
The Olympics closing ceremony was about showcasing the best of British pop acts, and then you had the models like Kate Moss strutting up and down the catwalk, and it was the cream of British culture right now, and that's exactly what One Direction are. And their marketing has been so clever, because in America, there are red buses and red telephone boxes in their videos, and there's this real almost kitsch culture of the UK. They're flying the British flag, and everyone knows them for it.
After their memorable performance at the Olympics closing ceremony, One Direction announced the release of their second album, Take Me Home. The album was released in November 2012. The band began recording the album in May 2012 in Stockholm at Kinglet Studios. Take Me Home received mixed reviews from music critics. There were large amounts of praise for the quality of production. However, it was also criticized for its generic, rushed nature.
There was a feeling that the second album was quite rushed, as in it came out a year after the first album. However, it's pretty common practice, and is dated back from the 60s, that bands need to produce an album every year or so. Look at Rihanna, 7 in 7 years. The danger is that you could have burnout. But when you look at Live While We're Young, the main single from the second album, I don't see how you could possibly argue that it wasn't a success and it wasn't good, because it was a huge hit. Ultimately, there's such a hunger for One Direction fans to have more from their idols that you really had to produce an album a year after the first. Otherwise, people would be really frustrated.
By the time One Direction released their second album, Take Me Home, the Directioners were at fever pitch to get anything and everything from this band. They were the biggest selling pop phenomena of 2012 worldwide. Besides Adele, they really owned and dominated the charts around the world. I mean, wherever they went, South America, Europe, Australia, the USA, Canada, you name it, One Direction was selling records and selling out arenas as well with their incredible tour. So of course, the album instantly debuted at #1 in the UK. It broke records when it debuted at 1 in America. It became the fastest selling album of 2012, hit #1 in 34 countries, and of course, stayed there for a number of weeks in most territories. In fact, it was the #1 digital album of Q4, the last 3 months of 2012. Kids and young kids at heart everywhere wanted that album under the Christmas tree. And I think it's fair to say One Direction ended 2012 when they took to the stage at Madison Square Gardens in New York, because I was there and I saw that concert. They ended their incredible year and they celebrated in serious style, knowing that they'd sold millions of albums around the world.
For their album Take Me Home, Simon Cowell basically put it out there and said to the best producers in the world, if you want to work on this, then come ahead. And it's like somebody getting a plumber around to their house taking all the quotes. All of a sudden, there was a queue of the best producers in the world, which, you know, for One Direction is astonishing because they came from this manufactured pop talent TV show background. And you would have been laughed out of court if you'd have said in a year's time you will have the best producers in the world fighting tooth and nail to produce for them. And it's because they're so big. Not just because they're so big, they are the whole package. They have the looks, they have the talent, and everyone wants to be associated with them. It may be a slow transformation, but it is happening. When you compare the first to the second album, the boys have grown up a little bit, and there's a huge difference between being an 18-year-old newcomer to 20 years old, and the boys want that reflected in their lyrics, which actually talk about taking sexy pictures of girlfriends or getting some in some of the lyrics. And I think we will see a progression to a bit edgier lyrics and music. And you also see Liam and Niall increasingly playing the guitar on some of the singles. And, you know, they want to be taken seriously as credible musicians, not just manufactured pop, and they say yes to all the lyrics that are presented to them. They're having more of a say.
We work as a group on a whole.
We co-wrote a few songs on the album as well, so that was really exciting to work producers and stuff. We had our choice of how this order of the album goes. There's loads of things that we get our choice on, really. We just have our input every so often just to...
But even if we haven't written on a song, and something comes in and we're like, oh, I'm not too sure about this lyric, obviously that's not classed as a co-write, but we still, even the songs that we don't write on, have a little look at it, and if we don't agree with it, we'll have our say. Everything.
What goes in the sleeve and stuff, so it's pretty good.
Live While We're Young is a hugely anthemic song. It captures the mood of the band and their fans as well, celebrating being young. And it's a great pop song. And when compared to something like What Makes You Beautiful, which was, you know, their first huge single, it's definitely as good, perhaps arguably more anthemic and more memorable.
The video for Live While We're Young was the perfect One Direction video for a perfect pop record. Here's a song all about going crazy, crazy, crazy. That's what they did by basically having their own like mini outdoor festival. They chose a field, a location in the southeast of England in the county of Kent. It was all secret, hidden away from view, although a few paparazzi, I happen to know, found the location. They hid in the bushes with their long lenses, trying to get the shot, a candid opportunity, but they were removed by One Direction's security detail. So they erected several tents, they brought in all their best mates, they lit a barbecue, they basically found a little bit of water, which they got involved with, they bombed in there, they swam, they took their tops off, they went crazy. It looked like the sort of festival you wanted to be invited to, and of course, what happened? They released it on all the social media channels and their fans went crazy. It was the perfect video for a perfect song.
Live While We're Young was a huge hit. On YouTube alone, it had over 200 million hits, and it was a top 10 single all over the world. And they proved that the myth of having that tricky second album, well, they just blew it away, and they're nailing it all the time. Huge albums, huge success, huge following, everything's going their way. The video shows the boys at a festival just being young guys having a ball. Ironically, they can't really do that now. Harry Styles, Zayn Malik goes down the street, they're followed by paparazzi, and sometimes they really do wish they could have more normality in their lives. Sure, they wouldn't change the jet set lifestyle and the success they've had in the number ones, but there is an element to not being able to go down the pub and just have a pint with a couple pals.
Since the rise of social media, artists and celebrities have found a way to be able to stay in constant contact with their fans. With the use of Twitter, Niall and the boys are able to sustain regular communication with their adoring fans.
Do you like having such close contact with fans on stuff like Twitter?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
It's great. It makes, I think one of the things that they like about us is that we don't try and kind of act as like this big intimidating thing. We act quite like the kind of people that they go to school with. So I think, the fact that we can kind of talk about the same things and actually just have a normal conversation, I think that's something that then would make them like us because they can relate to us and stuff.
Because you're not putting on.
Yeah, it's
you're
not.
just being yourself.
We're not trying to act like this big kind of character thing. It's just.
As talented as One Direction is, as charming and likable, they would never be where they are today without social media. Bear in mind that American young girls would have even seen One Direction on the internet before they even came to America. Friends would have emailed them. Websites like Perez Hilton very closely followed the UK X Factor and was putting up clips from performances. So they already had an American following from the internet before they ever had set foot in the country. And I think, the fact that there's Twitter and the band members themselves all tweet to their fans directly. You have Facebook fan groups, you have individual Facebook pages. All of these things have propelled this group whose fans are primarily young people who are kind of obsessed with social media into the stratosphere.
The moment they came off X Factor in the UK, there were kind of teenage girls globally who'd got wind of the fact that there was this quite good-looking band in the UK. They started watching them on YouTube, they followed them on Twitter, and then that's how this network of incredible fans begins who are obsessed with finding out their every move.
It's Justin Bieber times a million. It's exponentially grown. As social media has grown exponentially, and Justin Bieber was just a kid on YouTube. Now there's about 10 different websites that you can, use to promote someone. It's extraordinary, and I think One Direction really epitomizes the power of that medium.
And One Direction are not stupid. They've got their whole kind of social networking campaign. There's somebody in charge of social media from the One Direction management team. They've all got their own Twitter accounts. It's how they make sure that they appear that they're really close to their fans. So they'll retweet things, they'll really engage with them, and that is something so powerful that once upon a time pop stars never had. It means that the fans really believe that they are connecting with these idols and they stand a chance of going out with them, and that's just how it's really exploded. It means that Niall Horan could get off a plane and thousands of fans will know exactly what time he's going to have tea at his mum's house, and they will be there waiting outside. They almost seem to know what One Direction are doing before One Direction know themselves. It's amazing, the network and how they just share this information. Quite scary, in fact. I've seen on Tumblr some fans just kind of tweeting pictures of Niall. I think he was in LA. They'd gone to LA for their first trip, and he was in a hotel, like at the hotel pool, and this fan looked like that she was in the bushes, and she was just tweeting different pictures of him topless. He's walking across there, he's going to the toilet, and then just posting it live on Tumblr so everyone can watch what he's doing at that moment in time.
There's definitely a darker side, though, to all the social media stuff. I mean, on the one hand, there's really no privacy. It's stalker heaven because they know basically where the guys are all the time. Fans are tweeting pictures when they're spotted. The guys are tweeting, this is where we are today. Paparazzi are tipped off. So they don't have any privacy. And the other thing, which is even more disturbing, perhaps, is that if they even look at a girl, or God forbid are dating a girl, the girl gets destroyed by angry, aggressive, trolling fans who start attacking her on Twitter, giving death threats, finding her on Facebook, bombarding her with hate messages. And the boys have spoken out and said they're very upset about this, that the women in their life, even if they're only in their life briefly, are persecuted for even, dating them. And I think that kind of angry, trolling subculture, which comes along with some of this stuff, is disturbing. And particularly, I think, for the women attached to these guys, because they are going to be a figure of hate. And unfortunately, a lot of people now know how to contact them through Twitter or Facebook. They don't have any anonymity as well. So it's very, very tricky. It's not all positive.
It all seems very innocent that you've got these young girls who are loving their idols and just obsessed with them, but the obsession kind of goes to some quite scary levels.
And also, you can't underestimate the power that the fans have. You know, if any girl goes near one of those boys, then they're on Twitter, they're in trouble, because those One Direction girls and those fans do not take any prisoners. So if you're out there and you're going to go near one of the guys, watch out, because you're going to get some abuse.
Everything. They all have their like individual personalities and that like they're all like different. Like,
and they're
amazing
singers. And they're really good singers and they're really good looking.
And they let their personalities show when they're like singing and when they're
fit. They're well fit.
Well fit. I like Harry. I like Zayn. Harry, I love you. Zayn.
There's one for each of you.
Yeah.
So how was it meeting them?
Amazing. We were like first in the queue.
Yeah.
I think
We've been here since at 12 o'clock today.
I had to get the train up from Kent. We had to get the train up, like, and I was ringing my parents in the middle of town on the phone, like, almost in tears, like, oh my God, I need to go to London, and I had to persuade them. It was so hard to persuade them, and then eventually they're like, yeah, you can go. I was like, oh my God, so we got the train up here. We literally had to run from the tube station to get here.
Story.
God, Laura.
So how did you guys hear about it, and when did you? So you heard through Twitter, and
I like love it here. Yeah.
So where were you when you heard?
McDonald's. We were eating lunch at McDonald's.
So how's it feel now, just so randomly today that you've met them?
Amazing.
We didn't expect to, and then just random.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, girls.
Thank you. Bye.
In late 2013, Niall started dating fellow British superstar Ellie Goulding. The pair first got together during V Festival held in the UK. They were pictured kissing and hanging out together for a few weeks after the festival. The two only dated for a month and called it quits, as their busy schedules wouldn't allow them to spend any quality time together.
Please welcome a band called One Direction.
Thank you.
Who? Hi, One Direction. Here they come.
Who? Hello, you. Where's the video?
If you don't mind walking forward a little bit.
Where's you?
Hi, Niall. Hi,
Where are you? Oh, you, Steve Evans. How's it going?
One Direction, huge congratulations. This is the Brits Global Success Award. Amazing. You have sold 9.5 million albums. You've played in pretty much every country around the world. Harry, let's start with you. What's been your favourite country to play in as 1D?
Do you know, I think it's always nice coming home and playing here in England or Ireland in Niall's case is always nice. I think I don't know, this award is crazy. We're absolutely blown away. So it's not here. This award is absolutely crazy. Just thank you so much. It's incredible. Thanks.
Obviously America has taken to 1D in a big way. What have the American fans been like, Niall?
Our fans are quite the same all around the world, in my best Dublin accent.
And obviously up for the award with artists like Adele and Mumford & Sons as well. Do you feel that UK music, and in your case now Irish music, is really doing well around the world, Harry?
Yeah, I think especially this year it seems to have been just a massive, massive year for British music. I think, you know, Adele, Mumford & Sons, Ed Sheeran, they've all had huge years, and we're very honoured to be part of that. And it's nice that kind of tonight that's celebrated, because this year it seems to have been especially kind of big for British music. So it's great. It's, you know, we're happy, so it's great.
And have you enjoyed tonight? Has it been a fun night, apart from just winning, of course, in general?
Yeah, tonight has been amazing. It's just so you know, I stood this awkwardly because I was trying to smuggle the Brit. Liam's got one, so they don't know. Oh, there we go. Look, see, look. I'm gonna read that. Yeah, it's been a great night. It's been great performing, and obviously to win an award is just huge.
When can we see the One Direction film? I know Mr. Morgan Spurlock's here tomorrow.
Spurlock's here himself. We're shooting a movie. Like it's actually just been in the toilet with us, no lie. And that is coming out on the August 30th, and it's going to be very access all areas.
That's when you can see us in the toilet.
Something to look forward to. And what's the One Direction plan now? You've won another Brit Award. What's happening over the next few months?
This was a good start to the week, because on Saturday we open up our world tour here at the O2, so it's going to be a great year. Why'd you whisper in my ear? So yeah, and that doesn't finish till November, and and he's telling me to say I'm Irish. We've got the movie coming out and the world tour, and I love Ireland, and it's going to be a very exciting year.
And finally, Zayn, can you tell us a little bit about the song that you performed tonight?
Both mics.
It's a very special single, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a charity single, obviously, a cover of the classic Blondie tune, One Way or Another. And yeah, we're just massively honoured to be a part of it, and we're just loving the fact that we get to do something amazing for such an amazing cause.
Well done tonight, and huge congratulations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
In August 2013 came the moment that every One Direction fan had been waiting for. One Direction, This Is Us, the 3D concert film, was released on August 29th, 2013 in the UK, and a day later in the States. The film was described as an intimate all-access look at life on tour for the band. The film was directed by Morgan Spurlock. Spurlock, who unsuccessfully negotiated to direct similar films, Justin Bieber Never Say Never, and Katy Perry Part of Me, said that he took on the film because of the band's fast-track rise to stardom. The film was a box office success, topping the UK and US box offices and grossing over $60 million worldwide. And to date, it's the 4th highest grossing concert movie.
Take a seat, boys. Yeah, cuddle up beside me, Liam.
Good morning.
Testing, 1, 2, hello.
How is everybody? Tired.
The transfer
Late
window's
night?
now closed, and we did
Out on
sign
town?
Louis Thomas.
Any interesting stories? Anyone got any
All
jokes?
comfortable, Morgan? Good.
I think that our film is, I don't know, it's kind of hard to, because when you're making a film, obviously, I'm not an expert at making a film, but,
You are. Hey, Harry, don't
you know,
put
like,
yourself down.
we just want to show what we're about, and, you know, with, you know, like social media and stuff, there's only so much you can get across in terms of your personality, and, you know, social media and, like, 10-minute interviews that you do with people. So I think for a way for us to get across what we're like and what we're like with each other, for the fans to see. And I think that's the kind of stuff that they want to see, is like the behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, we just wanted to make a lot of that. And obviously it's different because it's about us and not about Justin Bieber or Katy Perry.
I think this film feels much more intimate than those films did. And I think, you know, Harry's right. I think that the level of access and the level of connection that you get with them and with their families is unlike you got in those other two films. And also within those two films, each movie only had, you know, one singer, and this one has 5, so this one's already 5 times better.
Yes, I like that.
Great smashing it, Morgan.
Yes, Morgan.
That makes sense.
You know, that you suddenly realize that it isn't just a British or an American phenomenon, that once they get outside of the country, everywhere they go, they're being chased by hordes of fans. We were in Mexico City and there's 5,000 people camping outside the hotel. I mean, this is such a massive global phenomenon, and it's only growing. I mean, it was incredible to witness and see.
Kind of lucky, like our fans are universal, like in their craziness, and they're all kind of similar, even though they are from, you know, different parts of the world. It was less about seeing stuff that we didn't like and think, oh, we really don't want that in. It was more kind of pulling stuff that we remember doing that we really wanted in. So it was kind of hard. I don't think we realised how hard it'd be to kind of get that cut where you kind of have to lose things that you want to put in. Because it's all just such great footage. There's just loads of it.
Well, we've just come back to work today after having a bit of time off, and it's so funny, like the first time we walk into a room, the loudest person in the room is always Louis. He's always got some sort of story to tell, so that's quite fun. First thing I got up to this morning was, oi, oi, from Louis. So, no, we definitely miss each other on time off, and I mean, we spend a lot of time with each other on our time off as well.
And also, probably the only con about what we do is that we don't get to go home often, so it's kind of nice that we do get little bits of time to go home, and yeah, we actually do spend quite a bit of time with each other during our time off as well. But yeah, going home is a good thing.
But nice. You're always looking forward to coming back, to be fair. Cause
You go home
well,
for a
I've
few
always
days.
got a story to tell anyway, but obviously, I'll have to tone that down from now on.
He didn't mean that.
Because so much is happening to us, and you kind of just lose it all. And it's great just to sit back and just watch it back and kind of remember and like relive those moments. It's nice.
Yeah, no, it's so nerve-wracking making a film and stuff. And I was just thinking the other day when we sit in the premiere and everyone's actually watching you on the big screen just to see what it's like. It's going to be amazing. But I don't know, maybe see how this one goes. See if people like it and people want another one. Then I'm sure we've got the time for that.
Maybe we could repackage the outtakes and make a DVD with
Nice.
a free poster
For
or something.
Christmas, for
that you
Christmas.
could
There's an
buy
idea. There's an idea.
as a
price.
perfect Christmas present. It's great. And give out to people at home.
Nothing says "I
Just an
love you,
idea.
Dad" like a 1D This Is Us DVD.
Exactly.
From Tesco with the stocking. Perfect.
Yeah, $11.99.
The film features the song Best Song Ever, which was released on July 22nd, 2013. The song served as the lead single for the group's latest album, Midnight Memories.
So after the cameras followed them around for the This Is Us documentary movie, and after them talking on camera about their story and hanging out backstage, it was obvious that for the Best Song Ever video, One Direction really had to change things up and do something a bit more fun, and that's what they gave their fans. So all 5 lads went into the makeup chair, went into character before they trashed a Hollywood executive room and basically went crazy around some very hot secretaries. And I think it was obvious as well that One Direction are budding actors at heart. I think they wanted to showcase that side of them. But look at Louis, look at Harry, look at Niall. I think there are 3 people there who could go on to do a bit of acting outside of music. So very clever, boys. No harm in having a few more strings to your bow.
Midnight Memories was released globally on November 25th, 2013. The album was described as having a slightly edgier and rockier tone to it, compared to the band's previous releases.
As soon as One Direction announced that they were releasing their 3rd album, Midnight Memories, at the end of 2013, the Directioners, of course, went online and pre-ordered that album in their thousands, if millions. It became the #1 digital pre-order album of 2013. Once again, it debuted at #1 in the UK and in America with huge sales, breaking records in both countries. It went on to be a top 10 best-selling album of that year. And of course, it helped them set up the next arena tour, which will take them around Europe and around the UK in 2014.
In December 2013, One Direction broke yet another UK sales record with the DVD and Blu-ray release of their 3D concert film, This Is Us. Almost 270,000 copies of the movie were sold in the UK within 3 days of its release, beating the record previously set by Michael Jackson's This Is It. On April 27, 2014, it was confirmed that One Direction were working on their 4th studio album, titled 4. Liam Payne claimed the album would be edgier and that the group had written most of the songs for it.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what One Direction do next with their music. I mean, they are potentially going to have to change things up a bit. EDM, electronic dance music, is really the biggest selling music genre in the world right now. And I think the boys want to basically attempt to inject a slice of that into their music. I know they've been working with the British producer Naughty Boy. There are rumours that we're going to hear Zayn Malik freestyling and rapping as well. There could be more electro R&B influences on this album. But then with Harry Styles loving his classic rock and loving working with people like Ed Sheeran, we could have more songs like Story of My Life and Littlest Things. I think it's going to be a very interesting album, and it's going to be interesting to see how the fans react to it.
In mid-2014, Niall was romantically linked with Hollywood hottie Selena Gomez after the two were pictured together at a Katy Perry show in London.
He's just so sweet, and he's just very level-headed, and he's a good kid. He really is.
Showbiz reporters speculated that Selena was dating Niall just to get back at her bad boy ex, Justin Bieber.
And you know so more than anybody, what is the cure for Bieber fever?
I don't know. There isn't one.
With millions of album sales, millions of fans, and millions of dollars, One Direction's rapid rise to international fame doesn't seem to be slowing down. And with the 4th album on the way, their monumental success will only continue to grow. He's been labeled as the most talented and musically gifted member of the group, and his popularity in the USA has made him by far the standout member of the group. So what does the future hold for Niall Horan?
Niall is probably the most talented of the group, and actually he's the biggest success in America, far bigger than Harry Styles, who is the standout in the UK. And he's often known as the Irish Justin Bieber in America. And they really take to his accent, his looks. He's got the boyish blonde looks. And the only thing is that I do think that in time to come, because he is so musically talented, may want his own solo career. And I think he really could do it because the Americans back him so much. But it's great for One Direction to have somebody there who is so musically gifted, because he can always, you know, if the producers all walk away from them, he can be writing the lyrics and really be the credibility behind them.
He is the leader of one of the biggest boy bands of all time. He came from a little town in Ireland, but would rise to become an international superstar. Niall Horan's story will continue to dominate the showbiz world for years to come.